My name is Heinkuhn Oh from Seoul, Korea.
Hi there. Heinkuhn Oh rose to prominence with his photographs of social types. He occupied a central position as South Korean photography shifted from politically engaged documentary to psychologically charged portraiture. He adopted a typological approach to his work, which means that he highlights the differences and sometimes similarities between societal groupings. August Sander is probably the best-known photographer who specialized in this mode of portraiture. He illustrated the different classes and professions in Germany. Oh is particularly interested in highlighting the fissures within the South Korean identity, the deep unease that is present beneath the surface of a society that is transformed with extraordinary speed. The country is often described as having a face-saving culture, where outward appearance and social performance carry enormous weight. His sitters rarely appear natural. They appear to be trapped by the tension that results from the gap between how they wish to appear and their fragility that inevitably leaks through. Photographers in most Western countries would probably never get away with doing this type of work. The most common criticisms are that typological photography has the potential to be oppressive in its categorization, and that the pictures reflect the photographer's inherent biases. Oh's work can be read almost as a psychological map of contemporary South Korea. While his portraits appear deceptively straightforward, they are direct, detached, and sometimes clinical. But they are loaded with social and psychological meaning. They reveal the pressures, role-playing, and anxieties that shape the modern-day Korean identity. Oh's work has a strong cinematic quality, even though he doesn't over-direct his subjects. His original dream was to become a movie director, but while studying in the US, he fell in love with photography. In his breakthrough series, Itaewon Story, he captured underground characters in the neighborhood of his youth in Seoul. During the 60s and 70s, Itaewon was dominated by the US 8th Army presence, and it was known as Camp Town. It was a kind of in-between zone, a space where people existed between cultures, neither fully one nor the other. This description could be applied to Oh's work in general, where his subjects often reside in liminal states between fiction and reality, childhood and adulthood, and between the individual and the collective. The Itaewon red light district was filled with nightclubs and bars catering to American soldiers. Crime, smuggling, and prostitution were standard. It was only later in life that he realized that growing up in this type of space was very different to the childhood experiences of most Koreans. Oh was at the forefront of the 1990 shift in Korean photography. Post-war, the emphasis was on humanitarian photography. Then it became more politically confrontational, and in the 90s, Oh turned his attention to psychological and social portraiture. In order to document the feelings of anxiety and social isolation that he recognized, especially in middle-aged Korean women, he began his Ajumma Series. This word means madam in Korean. Instead of trying to journalistically portray their lives, he felt that he could capture a narrative through their gazes. His harsh lighting often emphasizes the constructed quality of their appearances, stripping away any suggestion of glamour.
아줌마 작업을 시작하면서 내면의 초상 작업보다는 전면의 초상 작업을 하자 이런 생각을 했죠. 그래서 커다란 대형 카메라나 아주 재현성이 좋은 필름을 사용을 해서 피부의 질감이라든지 혹은 아주 세세한 디테일, 주름이라든지 이런 것들이 컨텍스트가 될 수 있겠구나 생각이 들어서 거기에 집약하는 초상사진으로 들어갔습니다.
His approach to what he calls casting resembles the process of choosing actors for films. For this project, the casting or process of selecting subjects took over a year, while the photography stage took only 2 months. He clarifies the difference between his approach to photographing celebrities and that of photographing ordinary people. With actors, he's engaged with building layers in their gazes, so he's creating a fiction. While with everyday encounters, he's searching for a subject who has these layers already present, and it's his job to reveal the subtleties through their expressions and postures. His aim was to capture the fractures within the mask-like quality of their prescribed role within society. There's a price to be paid for maintaining the Korean concept Jaemyeon or face, the social persona that one thinks one should maintain. In his project on young Korean soldiers, he recognized how the conscripts existed in a liminal state. To him, they were playing out roles of being in the military. They appeared strange and awkward because they were neither fully civilian nor fully military. This realization led to the title Middlemen. The mandatory system of conscription fitted into his broader interest of exploring the in-between states within his society. He felt that there was a level of absurdity to how the military roles were being played out.
군인들의 어떤 집단 사열하는 모습이라든지 군인들의 기념사진 혹은 이런 것들을 찍으면 재미겠다 하고 작업을 이제 시작하게 됐죠. 군에 들어가서 막상 작업을 해보니까 요즘 군인들은 어떤 군대라는 집단으로 보여지지 않고 개인으로 보여지는 게 강했어요. 그러니까 우리가 아니라 나라는 게 더 강하지 않나 그런 생각이 들었죠. 그래서 중간에 군이라는 집단을 찍지 말고 군인 개개인 병사의 초상을 찍자. 나와 우리 사이에서 갈등하는 개인들일 수 있겠구나. 모든 게 좀 모호하게 그 위치한 곳에 있구나. 요즘 군인들은 그런 생각이 들어서 중간인이라는 제목을 붙였습니다. 그러니까.
While shooting these portraits, he was assigned a military liaison officer to keep an eye on what he was up to. But because Oh was taking very straightforward pictures, the officer never had to intervene or restrict him from exposing sensitive military information. Instead, he seemed confused and asked why Oh chose to take such boring pictures. The unease and stiffness that he captures suggests how authority in Korea is often a role performed rather than a secure identity. South Korea transformed rapidly away from authoritarian dictatorships that continued into the late 1980s. So there's a continued distrust in institutions. Power is both respected and deeply questioned. Oh began working on his project Girls Act in 2001. These portraits in black and white show high school girls who were studying at acting school. Initially, he was interested in the psychological transformation that these girls were navigating between childhood and womanhood. But later, he became more intrigued by the duality of their place within society. He observed that they were morphing into objects of desire.
대상의 얼굴, 표정, 제스처 이런 것들부터 모든 게 다 원심력적으로 퍼져나가는 사진이라고 보면 됩니다. 내 사진에 많이 담겼으면 좋겠다. 혹은 서로 간의 대상과 사진과 사이의 긴장감이라든지 이런 것들이 들어가는 게 더 사실적이지 않나? 이런 생각을 하다 보니까 한국인의 얼굴이 그냥 단순하게 가면이라고 생각을 했어요. 많은 것들을 숨기는 얼굴들이라고 생각을 했어요. 전면성을 갖고 있다는 생각을 했어요. 앞전자를 써도 전면입니다. 정면이 아니라. 그 건물의 전면을 얘기할 때 파사드라고 얘기를 하거든요. 그러면 이 파사드와 가면이라는 어떤 마스크의 차이는 뭐냐 하면은, 마스크는 가리는 얼굴이라면은, 파사드는 내미는 얼굴이거든요. 그 아줌마 작업 이후부터 제가 담으려고 했던 거는 한국인들이 보여주는 전면의 얼굴을 담았습니다. 결국 나 이렇게 봐줘요 하는 얼굴이죠.
He later continued this investigation, this time in color, focusing on heavily made-up teenage girls. In his series Cosmetic Girls, the expressionless gazes of the girls were captured under identical lighting and with consistent framing. At first it seems that each girl is being presented individually and concretely, but through repetition, the images dissolve into an abstraction. His approach was to create close-up, detailed shots, and his proximity to the subjects resulted in a strange mixture of voyeurism and unease. South Korea compressed centuries of modernization into just a few decades. This transformation to prosperity has been described as an economic miracle, but it also has had negative psychological repercussions. In the past, Korean society was shaped by the ordered structure of Confucian collectivism, but then they embraced a neoliberal way of life. Oh believed that for these girls, makeup was an act of concealing their anxiety, which is detectable in their awkward poses, vacant stares, and artificial smiles.
With Cosmetic Girls, I casted 518 girls on the streets, and 138 of them visited my studio. And they were photographed with their self-made makeup style. Through this documentation of portraits, like a social report, I try to reveal their unstable identity influenced by entertainment media in recent Korean society.
These young women often feel overwhelmed by collective pressure as they struggle to achieve a sense of individuality. The codes and norms shared by all of these young women indicate that they belong to a new form of social grouping. South Korea has one of the highest rates of depression and suicide in the developed world. The country is experiencing rapidly declining marriage and birth rates, and it's estimated that 40% of people in their 20s and 30s have abandoned the ideas of dating, marriage, and children. Oh often presents these portraits as large-scale prints. He believes that, ironically, when viewing a large-scale photograph, the subject itself begins to feel unfamiliar. This is specifically true for portraiture. He wanted the girls to appear anonymous and alienated. Oh's portraiture returns repeatedly to the idea that identity in modern Korea is a performance under pressure, whether from the demands of modernity, urbanization, or consumer culture. The moments that he chooses to capture are the opposite of Cartier-Bresson's decisive moment. In fact, at college, he tells his photography students to seek out the non-decisive moments. For him, photographs of the in-between more accurately describe the reality that we live in. I'll end with images from his series Left Face. These stark, typological portraits of adolescents and young adults are photographed directly under unforgiving clinical lighting. The title refers to the idea of showing the other side of the self, the side that is usually concealed from public view. They reveal a youth that is under extraordinary psychological pressure to perform roles. His pictures reveal their fragile identities and their hidden feelings of anxiety and alienation. Hope you found that work interesting, and I'll see you next time.